Hi, and welcome to another travel episode.
Today we're going to beautiful and exotic Mexico with our colleague Olivia. Hola Olivia.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
Muy bien, bienvenida.
Gracias.
So Olivia, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sí, claro. Bueno, soy mexicana. He estado trabajando para Memrise un poco más de 5 años. Antes de eso estuve viviendo en la Ciudad de México, aunque en realidad crecí en Tijuana. Me gusta mucho la música del hip hop, me gusta mucho la comida, de lo que creo que vamos a hablar un poco, los quesos y los animales.
Okay, you say that you have been working for Memrise for almost 5 years or a bit over 5 years.
Un poquito más.
Yeah, a bit over 5 years. That's okay. You're one of the people who have been here the longest, I
Sí.
think. Nice. You are Mexican. You were born in Mexico City, but you grew up in Tijuana. And you love music, you love hip hop, you love animals, and you love cheese and food. And you are right, we will be talking about food later.
Genial.
So my first question, it's a bit tricky, but if I would ask you to pick 3 words to describe Mexico, what 3 words would you pick?
Es una buena pregunta. Yo diría que a México lo define humor, sabores y vasto.
Okay, so interesting. The 3 words that you've chosen are humor, humor, sabores, flavors, and vasto, like vast, large.
Yeah.
Okay, why those 3 words?
Bueno, creo que los mexicanos a todo tratamos de encontrarle el lado bueno. Nos
Ujú.
gusta, creo que tenemos una historia muy complicada y a través de todo creo que cuando uno le encuentra el humor a las cosas es más fácil sobrellevar todo, pero también nos gusta disfrutar de la vida y creo que el humor sale como por todos lados.
That's a nice explanation. So you're saying that humor describes the character of Mexicans quite well because although it's a country with a complicated history, complicated past, people have always known how to get through the difficult times with a good sense of humor, and it always comes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then flavors, I guess, because the food is amazing.
Sabores por la comida, sí. También, digo, es un país tan grande que los sabores de la comida, de los diferentes estilos de música, de las diferentes maneras de hablar, todo tiene mucho sabor.
Okay, nice. So I thought you were talking only about food, and yes, you are talking about foods because obviously, being such a huge country, flavors vary a lot from one part to another, not only in the food, but also the flavor of the accents, the flavor of the music, the types of music from one region to another, and everything has its particular flavor.
Sí, mucho sabor.
Okay, lots of flavor. Okay, so the third word, it's vast, large.
Bueno, pues sí, porque es un país muy grande, pero no solo me refería al aspecto geográfico.
Vale.
Debido al aspecto geográfico y debido a la historia, es una historia muy vasta, es decir, muy rica.
Okay, yeah.
Es una cultura muy rica, muy vasta, muy amplia. La cultura cubre todo, ¿verdad? Nuestra historia, nuestra comida, nuestras formas de vestir. Entonces creo que cuando hablas de México es difícil hablar de algo muy en específico porque es tan grande que es muy variado y muy vasto.
So with this word, you're trying to encompass the huge variety in the culture of this country. So it's not just that the country is vast and large in size, but because of the rich history that it has and the rich culture, there are so many elements to it that it's just very difficult to encompass it in one element.
Así es, no cabe en una nuez.
Okay, it does not fit in a nutshell. I have been to Mexico and I loved it. And I think I mainly went to the south. But I'm interested to know what are the top things to see in Mexico for you?
Bueno, creo que uno de los símbolos más grandes es el Zócalo de la Ciudad de México, que definitivamente, a pesar de que lo ves mucho en fotos, estar ahí te da una sensación de la dimensión que me parece que es increíble.
Okay, so you're saying that one of the symbols, it's El Zócalo in Mexico City. It's different to see it maybe in a picture to being actually there, right? It's a huge square. And when you're there,
Yes.
you have this idea of perspective.
Sí.
Yeah, I remember. Really nice. What else?
Bueno, como pensé en un lugar físico, también pensaba en un evento. Creo que el Día de los Muertos es algo que definitivamente tienes que ver y vivir esa experiencia porque de nuevo es mucho sobre nuestra cultura, es muy colorido, tiene mucho sabor y creo que es algo que definitivamente le recomiendo a la gente que vive esa experiencia.
Okay, so talking about seeing, and not only seeing monuments, but also seeing a tradition with your own eyes, you definitely recommend people to see the Day of the Dead celebrations on the altars because that's such an important representation of the culture and the history.
Sí, así
Yeah.
es.
When can we see that?
El Día de Muertos es el 2 de noviembre, pero hay altares en las ciudades días antes. Entonces, aunque tal vez vayas a una ciudad pequeña donde hay una procesión, va a haber lugares en donde puedes ver los altares.
Okay, so that's November the 2nd, and you
Sí.
can see the altars. They start putting them up a few days before
Ujú.
Dia de Muertos. Does everyone put their own altar? Are they public also for people to see them?
Sí, en las escuelas es muy común que haya altar de muertos, en las plazas, en el Zócalo, por ejemplo, se pone un altar de muertos, todo mundo pone altares en su casa, entonces seguro no te lo pierdes.
Okay, so everyone's gonna put up a Dia de Muertos altar. So people, children in schools will do that. People at their houses will do that.
Ujú.
In El Zócalo, in this big square that you
Yeah.
mentioned before, there will be a huge altar. So
Mhm.
if you're there around that time, you're definitely gonna see it.
Yes.
Great. ¿Qué más? What else?
Creo que ver los volcanes, el Popocatépetl
Mhm.
y el Iztaccíhuatl.
Oh my, that's a mouthful.
Bueno, les decimos
Popocatépetl. Mhm.
y Ixtaccíhuatl.
Ixtaccíhuatl. I love it. Is that Nahuatl language?
Sí,
Mhm.
pero les decimos el Popo y el Ixta.
Ah, okay. You shorten it, obviously, because it's a mouthful. You say Popo and Ista.
Yes.
Okay.
Sí, y son dos volcanes que duermen y hay una leyenda que dice que esos dos volcanes eran amantes. Entonces, es una historia muy bonita, pero también es increíble verlos.
Mhm. So these two volcanoes, they're dormant, Popo and Ista, and you're saying that there's a legend around these two volcanoes, and the legend says that these two volcanoes were two lovers, right? And
Sí.
and the legend's really nice, and it's also quite breathtaking to see them, right?
Yes. Sí.
I remember seeing them, and I don't know which one of them was, but one of them has the shape of, is it a woman on her, resting on her side, lying
Sí.
down?
Ahí está, también le decimos la mujer dormida.
Okay, so you also call Ista the sleeping woman. And where are they, those volcanoes?
Están en la ciudad de Puebla. Bueno, no en la ciudad de Puebla, en el estado de Puebla.
Okay, they're in Puebla. What would be the top things to do for you?
Bueno, lo primero para mí sería que comas de todo, probar todo lo que puedas porque hay una gran variedad de comida y todo es muy rico.
The first thing that you need to do when you go to Mexico is eat everything, right? Because there's such a variety of food. It's all very, very tasty. So you need to make sure you try all sorts of things.
Así es. Como dije, yo crecí en Tijuana, entonces definitivamente creo que algo que no se pueden perder es ir a la frontera que separa México de Estados Unidos, pero la parte que está en la playa, porque es una gran reja que separa a Estados Unidos de México. Llega por tierra y después se extiende hasta el mar. Y es impresionante.
Okay. Right. So you're saying another thing because you grew up in Tijuana, like you said. So you would go to the border with the states, the part that's right on the beach and the coast, because it's mental, and you see this huge fence that starts in the land and it extends right onto the sea.
Así es.
Oh, amazing! I did not see that. Nice. What else?
Bueno, como nací en Ciudad de México y ya mencioné un par de cosas de ahí, pero definitivamente ir a Xochimilco. Es la última red de canales que hay en México de cuando antes era el Imperio Azteca y toda la ciudad estaba formada a través de canales, pero este es el último.
Nice. So you also said that because you were born in Mexico City, you're going to recommend something else from there. Apart from El Zócalo, you recommend people to go to Xochimilco, which is which are the last remains, the last network of canals in Mexico, back from the times of the Aztecs, when the city was traversed by canals.
Así
And
es.
people would travel through canals. Yes. And actually, yeah, I remember being there. So what does one do when you go to Xochimilco?
Cuando vas a Xochimilco, rentas una chinampa. Las chinampas son grandes y puedes llevar a tus amigos, puedes comprar comida, llevar bebida y no pueden faltar los mariachis.
Okay, so what you do when you go to Xochimilco is you rent a
Chinampa.
chinampa. Is that a boat? Some sort of boat or...
Sí, es un poco, pero no es muy profundo. Es un poco más plano
Mhm.
y te lleva sobre el agua.
Okay, so it's like a flat boat that you rent together with your friends, and you buy drinks and food, and you might also get some mariachis to sing there for you, right?
Así es.
And you traveling through the water, spending the day there with your friends.
Sí.
Nice, very cool. Right, so we're moving on to my favorite part, finally. We've talked about food before, and now I'm going to ask you to recommend us particular things to eat and drink.
Bueno, todo el mundo sabe del tequila como bebida mexicana, pero yo les puedo recomendar el agua de Jamaica.
Okay.
El agua de Jamaica es una infusión de flores de Jamaica en agua natural que es un poco amarga, pero se le pone azúcar y mucho hielo.
Okay, so you're recommending, for people who only know about tequila, agua de Jamaica, hibiscus water. It's an infusion that you make brewing the hibiscus flower in water, and because it's a bit bitter, you just add lots of sugar and ice, and I imagine it's something that you drink in the summer, refreshing.
Es muy refrescante.
It's very refreshing, nice.
Otra cosa que a mí me gustan mucho son los aguachiles.
Okay, something that you really like are aguachiles. No idea.
Los aguachiles es un tipo de ceviche. Es pescado crudo, puede ser de diferentes pescados, que se le pone mucho jugo de limón y mucho chile habanero o chiltepín. Y bueno, es una comida muy buena para la cruda, pero es también muy sabrosa.
So one thing that you really like, aguachiles. It's a type of ceviche. Okay, so it's raw fish. So you're gonna use lime juice to marinate it. And what else?
Se le pone mucho chile habanero, chiltepín.
You add loads of habanero chili, very spicy, or chiltepín. Chiltepín is
super picante.
Really? Super spicy? Okay, I didn't know that one. I love spicy food. And you're saying that this is a good cure for la cruda, which is a word that I learned in Mexico. We don't say that in Spanish. For hangover. Good to know.
Con cebollita y pepino. Muy rico.
With onion and cucumber, and it's very nice. So now, if we're gonna go to Mexico, I would like you to teach us a word or phrase that's very Mexican, that's very common, and we can use that and impress everyone.
Hay una frase que me gusta mucho porque es multiusos.
Okay.
Y es no manches.
Yes, no manches. I love it. Okay, so this phrase is very, very useful because you can use it in many contexts.
Así es.
No manches would literally translate to don't stain. Manchar is to stain, so no manches, don't stain.
No manches quiere decir no lo puedo creer. Lo usas en situaciones en las que encuentras algo que te dijeron muy divertido o incluso cuando estás increíblemente enojado con alguien y le estás reclamando.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can use it for many things. You were saying one of the contexts is when you are surprised and actually you quite not believe what someone's telling you. So you're like, really? Like, you're kidding? Like, no manches? Like, what? But also if you're upset and angry and you're telling someone
No manches.
like, kind of like, stop bothering me, like, leave me alone.
Sí, pero es más como cuando estás enojado, decepcionado con alguien. Por ejemplo, si le pediste a alguien que te hiciera un favor y no lo hicieron, no manches.
Right. So it's more that to express your disappointment, right? Sí. You're upset. You ask someone to bring something for you and they're like, no, I forgot. You're like, oh, seriously?
Exactamente.
No manches.
Sí.
Good to know. Cool. So finally, can you give us a cultural tip that is a film or a book or an artist from Mexico that we can use to get under the skin?
Bueno, otra cosa que quizá no es muy conocida es películas de Piporro.
Definitely didn't know that.
Piporro fue un actor a mitad de siglo. Hizo muchas películas en las que siempre representaba personajes de clase trabajadora y creo que es una buena representación del humor del que te hablaba al principio. Vivía situaciones muy duras, de clase trabajadora, pero siempre tenía muchas aventuras y es una manera de conocer a los cowboys mexicanos también.
So Piporro was an actor that starred in many films in the 50s where he would represent the working class and kind of like the adventures and misadventures that would happen in a working class environment. And as you were saying, this actually shows this type of humor. Mexicans will likely use humor to kind of get through the difficult situations. All right, Olivia, so when did you leave Mexico?
Me fui de México hace poco más de 5 años.
All right, so you left Mexico almost 6 years ago.
Sí.
Wow, that's a long time. So what do you miss the most?
Bueno, lo típico es extrañar a la familia, los amigos, la comida, el clima, pero algo en particular que extraño mucho de haber crecido en Tijuana, en el norte de México, son los atardeceres, los colores increíbles de los atardeceres, las lunas súper claras, sobre todo en el mes de octubre, eso lo extraño mucho.
Okay, so yes, you're saying that you miss the obvious things, like everyone always mentions, family, friends, food, and the weather. But something that you miss, particularly having grown up in Tijuana, is the color of the sunsets, particular color, which is beautiful, and also the bright moons, especially in October,
Sí.
in the sky. Wow. ¿Algo más?
Ah, sí, uy, también, en particular de toda la comida, alguna de las cosas que aquí no encuentro es una tortillería.
Mhm.
Entonces el olor a tortillas recién hechas es algo que extraño mucho.
Yeah, I did notice that when I was in Mexico. Okay, so you're saying that something that you miss is not having a tortilleria around. Sadly, there are no tortillerias in London. So this is a shop where you will buy your tortillas. That's why you have that smell of freshly made corn tortillas around. Remember the smell of corn tortillas. So nice.
Hasta me dio hambre.
Ah, now you're getting hungry. Yeah, me too. Especially talking so much about the food. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you for the tips, for the recommendations, and thank you for reminding me of Mexico, which is a country that I love, that I really, really liked.
De nada, y vayan todos a México y me invitan. Hasta la próxima.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening to Escucha from Memrise, and catch you next time.